The following is a segment from Session 10 of the Honestly Better Mental Fitness Show. If you would like a list of all the segments and the full sessions, please visit honestlybetterfitness.com/list. That's honestlybetterfitness.com/list.
Welcome to LNH Industrial, Honestly Better Mental Fitness. I found mental fitness a few years ago, and it changed my life. It's changed my family's life. And now we're bringing it to all of LNH Industrial to put it out to the rest of the world. Thank you for joining us.
So let's talk about how to get past conflict, how to resolve it, how to get to the deeper root. So I think the first thing would be to prioritize understanding through reflective listening and genuine questions to foster resolution instead of winning an argument. If you sit and listen to a couple argue, when they're arguing, they're two lawyers arguing their case. When you listen to a couple in conflict that is able to move through, they take turns more being detectives, investigators. They're curious. Okay, well, tell me why. Help me understand why you can't do this thing or why you would do that thing. And they're not asking to then use as a weapon to judge them or to criticize them or to have this gotcha moment, but they're asking to genuinely understand. I have lots of brutal conversations with people, and almost never is someone ever hurt or offended because I am genuinely trying to deeply understand them. And only when they feel deeply understood and I get that's right back for them. They're like, yes, that's it. So it's like, oh, you didn't do this thing, or you did that thing, or you need this thing. Well, help me understand why. And you go through this questioning to really deeply understand. And then when you deeply understand the other person, then they will be open to solving this problem. It's kind of like someone came into LNH or to whatever your particular job at LNH was, and they're offering solutions to a job they've never done. And it's like only, or something that they don't even understand. It's like if they sat with you and you said, okay, that's not working. Okay, and this, and when that happens, this happens, and you go through this whole problem, and then they are able to reflect back to you. Okay, so this is the problem. Like A happens, then B happens, then Z happens, and that it. And we're like, yes, that's the problem. Boom. Now they're ready to hear an answer. If I walk in and I start giving answers and solutions before I even deeply understand the problem, you're not going to trust or respect the answers. And so the first step in getting past conflict is to first deeply understand your partner without judgment. And this is really, really, really hard. This is letting go. This is that growth edge and that discomfort because it's trying to understand a perspective that is not your own. It is where your growth gets to come from. It's maybe you're an introvert and they're an extrovert. And I don't know why you would need to do this because I don't need to. Right? But then when you deeply understand, you're able to put yourself in their shoes and be like, okay, I get it. That's not me, but I get it. I get why you need this or why you can't do that. And when you can do that, you will have their ear and you will be on the same page. So my first step in getting past conflict is to prioritize understanding through reflective listening. And I would say the reflective is giving it back to them. So you listen, you hear what they're saying, you hear what the problem, and then you reflect it back and ask if you got it right. Is that it? Is that what the problem is? Is this what you're feeling? Is that what you're going through? And when you get, yes, that's it. You are one huge step into actually resolving this thing. The second step is taking ownership of your emotions and experiences. The best way to put this is no one can make you feel a certain way. You speak to how you feel. When you are gone, instead of, let's say, your partner stays out late and doesn't call, maybe that's the issue, right? And so you are the way not to do it here, right? The example would be oh, you're so like careless and thoughtless and disrespectful. And I asked you to do this, and you didn't even call me, and you could have at least picked up the phone. Like there's this criticism, right? And it's saying like you made me feel this way versus, hey, when you don't call, like I get worried. I don't know what's going on. My mind goes here, and I feel this way when this happens. That's very different than you are this way and you do these things. So it's taking ownership of your own experience, of your own emotions. And when you can say it in that way, when you can say, hey, I know you're not leaving dishes out on my counter to make me there, but when I come home, or when I come down in the morning, or when I come home from work and there's dishes all over the counter, I feel stressed out. Is there any way that we could find a way to not have dishes on the counter versus the insulting and attacking? One is a person being vulnerable. They're being authentic. They're being genuine. They're being true. They're taking responsibility for their emotions and experiences, and they're inviting the other person to help solve a problem with them versus criticizing the other person, making assumptions that the other person is doing this intentionally in here. Following, tracking, making sense so far? Good. Okay. So it's taking ownership of your own emotion experiences in your language, and it's a deep thing. It's focusing on identifying unmet needs rather than getting mired in personal attacks or absolutes. I'd pretty much remove always and never. They are almost always never true. And when we bring those in, they immediately move to, well, there is that time, and what about this? And you discount the other person. So just removing those are helpful. Utilizing breaks to manage pressure and maintain a constructive dialogue. Emotional flooding is very real. Someone was just talking about having the, I think, Paul, you were just talking about having the heart rate thing hooked up in there, right? And seeing your heart rate stuff, the biometric trackers in there. And people don't make good decisions when they're in a very high emotional state. So my advice would be, and here, when you find yourself when your pressure gauge gets high, just like your machine, just like your car, when it goes into the red, pull down and cool off, right? Don't keep going. The conflict is not a problem. Don't avoid it, and don't engage in it when you're not ready to engage in it. And if you are feeling massively elevated, you are not in a good place to engage in it. To disengage respectfully is to not to just walk away or to storm off. If that's the best you got, then great, do that. That's probably better than staying and yelling and saying things you need to. Even better would be to say, I'm feeling really elevated, stressed, angry. I need to take a break for this to cool down, and then we'll come back and address it when I'm ready to. And maybe you put a time in an hour, tomorrow, in a week, whatever it is, but it's letting the person know, hey, I want to solve this. I'm here with you. Right now, I'm not in a place where I can do this. Right. And we'll talk about kind of how to do. And remembering that the emotional climate is paramount, communicating effectively without compromising your beliefs. So this is neither avoiding the conflict nor making the conflict hostile. Getting to the root of the conflict by seeking to understand rather than winning. So if you are in that place where you are feeling angry, you're feeling hurt, you're feeling betrayed, you're feeling a victim, you're feeling not cared for, to take a step back, to change your breath pattern. We tend to hold our breath when we're getting angry instead of releasing. Like people take this, there's some show of like you come home from work and you sit down, or maybe you walk in and you take this big exhale. Like, do it. Take a big exhale. Like, release yourself. Change your environment. Move. Maybe go for a walk. Go for a jog. Sometimes like mantras or things that become helpful, phrases that help you remember, re-engage, orient, or ground yourself are helpful. Interrupt the pattern. Maybe you go to a different place to have it. Maybe every time you have this conversation, it doesn't go well. So interrupt the pattern. Maybe you go to a coffee shop to talk about it instead. Maybe you go, change the environment. You can have a plan together, or you can have a plan individually. And I'd say even like have a panic button. Maybe you even have like if you both realize that you both get too heated in these conversations and it's not been helpful, you have a panic button that says it's a word, it's a phrase, or if it just says, if I walk away, it means this beforehand, and making some sort of plan. Or embrace it, laugh, cry, do what you need to do to let it go. When you're emotionally flooded, take a step back, change your state so you can move forward with intention instead of reaction. One of the things that I probably do the most with couples is help them understand each other. I actually, and most of the time when I'm working with couples, I rarely actually say much at all. What I do is create a space where the other gets to listen. And so I ask, what is the thing that's hard for you? And what do you feel in that? And tell me what that's like. And we go through a long thing until we get to like, yeah, that's it. Like they've gotten to say and express the thing, whatever the thing is, right? And then I say, okay. And I move to the other, like, tell me what's the thing? Where are you at? And almost as if this other person is not here, because you get to tell someone fresh, because I have no idea what's going on, right? And then they do that. And then they say, until we get to the point where I can kind of repeat it, or they're to like, okay, so it's this and that and that. And when this happens, that's good. And they're like, yeah, that's it. That's right. And almost always between the two of them, there's some sort of aha moment. Like, oh, like I didn't get that. Like I saw it from my perspective. I just thought you were being this, but now that I just sat here and listened to you talk for 15 minutes, they're like, I get it. Like, and I don't know, I don't get it because it's not me, but I get it. Like if noise was, if music in the morning was that like disruptive to me, like I wouldn't want music either. Like if every time I came down and there was dishes on the counter, like, and I felt like my whole world was falling apart because there's no order and chaos and I don't have anywhere neat or clean and my brain's scattered already and I'm already struggling or whatever it is. They're like, yeah, I would get it. Like I would need this and want this desperate in my life. And almost I say nothing. And then it's just like pause. And it's like, oh, they get to see each other with new and fresh eyes. They see each other not through themselves and through their own lens of their own experience, but they get to like see and witness them as a totally radically different person. And usually that's what it takes. And it's like, okay, I heard this. And then usually I'll flip and say, okay, so after hearing this, tell me what it's like to hear that and understand that and tell me what you need. And then, then they kind of express those things and then we're done. Usually my job's done and I'm out. And it's an interesting thing because I feel like I did nothing. I said nothing. What I really did was force you guys to deeply listen to each other. And once you deeply listened and understood each other, you solved your problem. And so that's, I think, the deep message in here is if you can deeply listen to your partner and set yourself aside, like you will have your time. And I'm not saying set yourself aside permanently because your experience is just as valid as theirs. But for a moment, can you set yourself aside and just try to totally absorb and understand where they're coming from? And when you do that, it's powerful. The world shifts, the landscape shifts. Their view of you and your view of them changes dramatically. And then you can get to the thing, and almost always you're like, oh, that's it? That's what you needed? Okay, yeah, I can do that. Like, why didn't you just say that in the first place? Like most of the time, oh, you don't want to go out every night. You want to go out with your friends 3 nights a week or this, or you don't want to go out, whatever it is. You're like, yeah, I can do that. And in the end, it ends up being a simple thing. Like the conflict isn't the problem. Don't avoid the conflict. Don't get mired in the conflict. Embrace the conflict. Get to the deep root. Understand, not fight. Maybe fight to understand instead of fighting to win. Like if you put your effort into understanding, fight to understand their person instead of fighting to get your viewpoint seen. Right? That's it. That's the heart of it.